We're not gonna get too deep into most of that because we'll probably, as long as this show is running, it'll probably go up as is, and I'll have to do my power recap separately. So quickly, man, we're gonna get into. We'll start with our top three storylines in the NBA Summer League. We'll go from three to number one. I know we have some similar things here. I found out in talking, and it's kind of odd, but G and I are both Pistons fans.
Yeah.
So that's excellent. We'll probably, this could devolve into a bit of a Pistons round table or something, but we'll try to be respectful of everybody else's particular teams and whatnot.
Right.
So
no bias. No bias.
Right. Try to keep it fair and balanced and everything. Have you been able to catch a lot of NBA Summer League? And one thing I wanted to jump into quickly before we get into our top three. What's your thoughts on the Summer League? Because it's kind of changing. And NBA TV needs content. This is in its second or third year, maybe.
Yeah.
So, how has the Summer League been for you as a basketball fan in general?
I'm a fan of Summer League. And I do think last year and this year it's been more entertaining. And that's not just because of some of the changes that they implemented, like there's three leagues now. They got the Orlando, Utah, and Vegas this year.
I wasn't aware of Utah.
It's I think it's only been on NBA TV or .com, NBA.com.
Oh, did that one already happen, or is that coming next?
It's been like Vegas and Utah were going at the same time.
Okay.
So
I thought some teams were missing from between Orlando and Vegas.
Yeah.
So Vegas wraps tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah,
it finishes up, and Orlando was last week,
right.
The last 2 weeks. So you're a fan of it. I do agree. I think it's doing a lot to push, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not always the biggest NBA fan because of the refereeing, when the big three was put together, the talent, or the disparity between a lot of the teams, a small market, some of these smaller market teams kind of being feeder teams to the big three or four, traditional teams. And then I don't know about for you, but this year with us losing Monroe to Milwaukee, I mean, I really had to step back and, when has Milwaukee been the team that you had to worry about?
Everybody wants to go to, yeah.
Because Monroe was mentioned as possibly going to New York for the last 3 or 4 months. I think the NBA Summer League has been pretty. I think one thing we get to see is a lot of these second year players.
Yeah.
A year or two later, you get to see what they're doing,
right.
and somebody like, I think, Gary Harris from Michigan State.
Yep.
To see a guy like him that
he just didn't really fit. He didn't seem to find his way onto the court for the Nuggets last year.
Do you think he needed to stay another year? In all honesty.
Yeah. I mean, I think coming from Michigan State with Tom Izzo particularly, I think he grooms 4-year players. I think those guys come out of there with better intangibles, higher basketball IQ, and that system is meant to have you for 4 years.
Right.
It's not meant to turn around 2 and done, 1 and done products. But I mean, I think also him being in Denver, even though they were terrible, he had guys in front of him. He had Wilson Chandler, Evan Fournier, Gallo when he wasn't hurt. And unless they're going to keep him at the 2, there's just too many guys in front of him for really get some shine. And he's kind of a tweener. He's a wing guy.
Right.
He doesn't really fit a specific position. So, but yeah, and just what you were saying, just to kind of recap, I think Summer League for me, why I enjoy it, is it bridges the gap when there's basically nothing sports-wise on TV.
Right.
Like when baseball is just dominating the headlines, here comes summer league, and I get my basketball fix.
Right. And I'm like, the games go a lot quicker. It's a good proving ground for, like I said, these younger players.
Yeah.
You get to, and nowadays we get a lot of these tweener, undefined players
Right.
coming in, and you have guys we want to see if they're playing on the wing. I mean, you have a power forward from college who's now going to be somebody like last year with the kid in Milwaukee, Parker. He
Yeah,
played.
Jabari,
He
yeah.
played pretty much in the post for Duke, and now he's going to be a wing
gonna be,
player
yeah.
in the NBA. So we get to see these guys display their dribbling, ball handling abilities. Can they pass?
Right,
Some of these,
decision-making.
some of these point guards who were dominant in college, now they have to be table setters and
Yeah.
facilitate the offense. So we get to see a lot of things outside of the cauldron that can be the NBA season when teams are trying to get into the playoffs, obviously.
Yeah, and I think summer league is one of those things that, like I'd say like the common NBA fan probably just assumes is going to be unentertaining. It's because it's guys that are basically fighting for roster spots. Like, and to be fair, like on most of the summer league teams, they're really looking at 2-3 guys.
Right.
And the rest of those guys are just lottery tickets. Like if somebody has a blowout performance or like just goes crazy, then they get a shot. But for the most part, you're looking at your first rounder, maybe your second rounder, and maybe a guy that you brought in from your D-League team or somebody that you've been watching that has been cut from another team, or like the veterans who are trying to give it one last go.
Right. Somebody like Thabit, Hashim
Right,
Thabit,
Thabit, yeah.
is like on the select team right now. A number 2 pick, I believe, overall several years ago. So, with that said, we can get into what's your number 3 storyline, or we can talk team wise, how a team is looking, or what a player is going to do for a team. Just your top 3 observation.
Gotcha. 3 for me was the kind of the Pacers as a whole. Their 2 picks, Joe Young, Miles Turner. And I guess I missed the boat on those guys. Like maybe I was sleeping on Miles Turner. Like I know there was some hype around him to a certain degree, but he through summer league he was 8.3 boards a game, 18.7 points per game, and roughly 2 blocks a game.
Right.
And he showed decent footwork. He showed the ability to have a face-up game. He's got a decent mid-range shot, like a shot that I think you have to at least respect.
Right.
He said he patterned his game off of LaMarcus Aldridge. I didn't see him shouldering as many guys.
No.
I didn't see him get as physical in the post, but he has some of that. He did a lot of the shoulder in and then fade away. Like he would get the contact, feel it, and then fade.
Kind of like the Dirk shot.
Yeah, just like more balance. He didn't stick the leg out, but he's one of those guys. Like I just don't know if he can completely get physical in the paint. But for the Pacers, particularly with them moving Roy Hibbert, and while in like the last pod, you and your brother had kind of touched on how they are better probably without Roy Hibbert. But I just didn't know if Jan Mahimi could really like come in and be a starter.
Agreed. Agreed.
Like he's a serviceable big. Like, look, at the end of the day, you want your bigs to rebound, block shots,
Right.
and, like be able to put the ball in the hole 2 feet from the rim. I just don't know that Jan does much else. He's an athlete. He runs, But I think particularly this year, the Pacers, that all the talk has been them trying to be faster, them trying to score more.
Want to be up tempo.
Right. And I think Turner gives them a guy that can run the floor and then still give them some form of a post presence.
Right.
Still give them a big that can get you, depending on how the ball's moving, 5 to 8 points a game. And I think that's good. And then they got a guard, Joe Young, who was their late round pick. And I guess he's kind of the surprise for everybody. Nobody really saw him.
They signed him in the last day or two, didn't
Yeah, they committed to him.
Okay.
Which is interesting because they've now got Monte Ellis, Rodney Stuckey, and this guy. And I mean, I guess their whole thing is they're gonna play small, so they might have 3 guards on the floor at one time.
Now Hill's still in the fold, right?
George Hill's still a point guard. That's the one spot I feel like they're lacking in.
I've been critical of Hill over the last several years, and to think where because didn't he play ball in the state of Indiana?
IUPUI.
And averaged maybe almost 30 a game.
Yep.
And as a pro, he just hasn't consistently scored enough. And I just felt like when they did make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, I just felt like he was a glaring weakness for them. And I thought they should have moved on. But Pacers are kind of in that same boat with the Pistons. It's very difficult to attract a truly elite player. As you see now, we brought in a mid-range guy like Reggie Jackson, who I appreciated, respected that move right there. But yeah, they got a log jam at guard.
Yeah. And I mean, to touch on what you were saying with George Hill, I think their thought process was, because they got him from San Antonio. They traded Kawhi Leonard for him. And I think that their thought was that in that San Antonio system with Tony Parker in front of him, he wasn't allowed to shine. He wasn't allowed to go out and get numbers. I think what they didn't pay attention to is the fact that he's really not a distributor. He really is not a playmaker. He's a shoot-first guard. He's really a 2 that's too small, so he plays the point.
Which is a common problem in the NBA.
And I mean, positionless basketball is what they say they're going to, but look, you still need somebody that can pass the ball. And I think that's going to be their biggest issue. So if your starting lineup is George Hill, Monte Ellis, Paul George, maybe Miles Turner is the 4 or the 5, and then you either got Jan Mahimi or whoever else they want to throw. Oh, and Jordan Hill. Jordan Hill's probably going to be their starting 5.
Oh, they brought him in?
They signed Jordan Hill.
Okay.
So he'll probably be 5, and then maybe Miles Turner gets your starting 4.
Okay.
But out of those 5 guys, no matter how you slice it, there's really nobody that's trying to pass the ball. There's nobody that's outside of Paul George when he wants to be generous.
Right.
There's nobody that's really trying to make a play out there.
I see that being an Achilles heel for them. Now, Joe Young, I saw him limited on a limited basis in college. He was at Oregon, right?
Yeah.
And is he 6'4" or shorter? I've been a fan of some of the Oregon program, especially with the home court that they have. And I've tried to get into that program, and it was a couple of guys that came out of there a few years ago that I was big on based off of what I saw in March Madness. They got drafted, and I never heard a thing from them. So Joe Young, I'm hopeful of him. As I should mention quickly, my number 3 is also Miles Turner. Like you said, for him to erupt for 20 points and 8 rebounds in his first summer league performance, he's shooting 60% from the field. After kind of underwhelming folks at U of T, I mean, he averaged 10 a game, 6.5 rebounds there. So who knew, we could get this
ability.
Yeah, that we could get this guy that's almost averaging 19 a game. Now, we have to preface all of our whole talk right here that all of these players who are doing some exceptional things in the summer league, it is against summer league talent.
Right.
So we don't know how this translates to when LeBron is on the court.
Right. When you got somebody that's been in the league.
When Miles Turner is guarding Lopez from the Knicks, or he's trying to help out on Carmelo in the post or something.
Or when he goes up against LaMarcus Aldridge.
Exactly. But Like I said, that is. I don't know if you have any more comments on Joe Young, but for me, yeah, I agree. Miles Turner